As usual, I hate covering Hassan Piker, covering the left like this under these circumstances. But it seems to me that Hassan Piker did so much to everyone, right? They're attacking him big time. They feel as if he is just the worst thing that happened to America. That they see it as he's a bad person, he's an evil person, and it's gotten to a level of politics that we haven't seen in a long time. It's a fever pitch of hate and straight up not liking this person, Hassan Piker, for what he stands for his values, for being a compassionate person, right? For the working people and those people that are struggling in America, that are exploited, that are not listened to by the political class, and are just pretty much considered, feel ostracized by the system, um, right? The people that have feel ostracized by the system and feel like everything they're doing is wrong. They're hyper exploited, and it shouldn't be that way. So he has done a lot of interviews on a lot of channels, and he was invited even to a the New York Times. So it's got into a fever pitch, right? Everyone is just talking about him. Everyone is just attacking him um, for his views, and it seems like a Red Scare, right? Remember the Red Scare that happened years ago? That everyone had a fear of, or uh, the Cold War and the ideology of the left, that the left was going to destroy the country, that the left was going to actually uh, do so much harm to everyday people. But this is what I want people to understand, that unions were born out of the freedom of assembly, the 8-hour workday, the lunch break, the having the weekends off, um, having a healthcare, having actual benefits at work, having a pension, having a retirement, having Social Security, having Medicare, um, all came out from socialist ideals. Having holidays uh, came from socialist ideals. So that's what I want people to understand. And the problem is that history is not taught in schools as it used to be, right? Now the history is very edited. History is very, how can I say, not gone into very deeply. They teach it a different way than they've ever taught it, right? It's not taught. A lot of the things that they used to teach are no longer taught and are not taught the way they used to teach them in the old days, right? And let's watch this interview with Hassan Piker about all the hate that's happening in his direction.
I am very excited to introduce the world to somebody that I think you're going to be hearing more and more about in the coming weeks and months. He's really somebody who's done an amazing job and is being recognized more and more. His name is Hasan Piker. He is a political Twitch streamer. And Hasan, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having.
So every single news outlet is still talking about him and saying that the reason why all the rhetoric, all the things that are happening in the world are because of him. And so it's overblown because all he is just a political commentator. Nothing more than that, right? And so now anyone that is willing to speak out is treated as such. So, by the way, my name is Celso Garcia, and I'm live on Facebook, YouTube, Substack, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, and X. Right? Hit the like button. Write your comments below. Your comments are very important. If you want to support the channel, you could hit the Cash App at $ Old Man Labor, or you could subscribe to the channels above, or you can donate to the GoFundMe page that I have set up for my activism. The fight that I'm in right now, right? The fight I'm in right now, right? So I'll share it in the comments, right? I'll share the link to the GoFundMe, and let's get right into the program.
I love the introduction. You made it seem like I'm making a big announcement. More and more people are going to be hearing about you. More and more people are going to be hearing about this guy in the upcoming days as a dangerous radical, a commie nepo baby that wants to allow theft and murder.
Yes, that's the latest.
All
is that you
on
are
U.S. soil.
They're criticizing him heavily, right? For the clips. They're criticizing him so badly, not giving him a chance to speak or express his opinion. They're just pretty much just attacking him, Hasan Piker. And why is there so much toxicity in our politics today? Why is there so much toxicity? Why is it so much bad faith? And it's no longer about working together or trying to get things accomplished for the American people. And I could argue that it's always been like that, through slavery, through civil rights movement, through the black code that repress and treated minorities differently. And throughout our history, it's been a history of elites and people with money that have controlled the narrative and the paths that everyday people are able to take. And the inequality and the differences between big money and regular people has gotten extremely different, right? I remember growing up in the Bronx. I can tell you my story, a little bit of it about my story. I saw the poverty. I experienced the poverty of living in the Bronx, right? But then you will go to more rich places where they have mansions, not too far from poor neighborhoods where people were not able to afford their rent or were able to afford to live opulent or rich lives, right? So New York City is one of those type of places, right? You see Times Square, you see the beautiful, expensive places in the city, the touristy places that are well taken care of, that are totally different than the rest of the city, right? They're totally different than the rest of the city, period, right? They're totally different. And if you travel across the city, usually they wouldn't take you to the outer boroughs, to the poorer areas, where you will be shocked at the difference in lifestyle between the poor areas of New York City and the rich areas, right?
And Israel, everywhere around the world.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be a breakthrough moment for you. I don't know if you saw. Okay, so just to get real for a minute, since I assume most people who follow my Substack know who you are. I mean, I've written about you in the past, but if you are not terminally online, maybe you're not aware that something just completely fucking insane has happened in this week. So should
This has
Democrats
been going on for the last month and a half now. But
sorry, that's what I meant. It's been going on for 6 weeks.
It has
And this
not
is like
stopped.
this, and this is not the first time this has happened, but this feels like the most insane one to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. I want to get to how you're feeling about this, by the way, but we'll get to that soon. Okay, so WNYC writes today, should Democrats appear with Hassan Piker? Technically, I'm a registered Democrat, if I'm being honest, so here I am. Hassan Piker justifies the social murder of CEO, which it seems like that is actually just completely mischaracterized. That's Fox. Like, I believe what it's referring to is yesterday in the New York Times, you talked about the social murder that the CEO of United Healthcare was committing, and they just seem to have completely misunderstood it. So gotta
which
love
wasn't
Fox.
even an endorsement of
I know,
the assassination of Brian Thompson, allegedly in the hands of Luigi Mangione. It was me answering a direct question that was asked, which was, why do you think Gen Z was so on board with Luigi Mangione? And I was asked directly if I think it's appropriate to kill CEOs, and I of course answered no. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, I should say that, like, we've met a couple times, and I've never gotten the impression that you are like bloodthirsty and would want to kill anybody. And I should also say that, like, every time I see you, you've got Jewish people around, and you also don't, including myself, and I'm not seeing like red in your eyes. So
I've learned to do tequila. I've practiced tequila so perfectly that no one knows. This is what you got to do. You gotta hide yourself among the ops and learn all about Jewish culture and customs.
Yeah, well, you've been doing it for a long time.
They just attack him so badly.
We basically consider you one of us, or at least some of us do. Okay, continuing. Democrats need to take more risks. This one isn't worth it. Washington Post. That's about.
And this is the attacks that have been coming at him 100 miles per hour at one person for twitching, streaming. Imagine a regular person that doesn't have a large audience like he does. Imagine a regular worker in the workplace or in their neighborhood or in their community organizations trying to speak up and try to say things the way they feel it is, right? Are we getting into that culture where people can't speak their mind, where people are not allowed to say things the way they want to work. I've gotten in trouble at work many times in many situations for speaking up and saying things the way I feel it is, right? And oftentimes, the bosses and the people that are in charge don't like anyone speaking up or saying anything that they feel is a contradiction to what they believe, is a contradiction to what they stand for, right? And I had no choice. I had to speak up, make complaints about safety issues that later on came out to be true. So they came out to be true. And so I work for the largest transit agencies in the country, right? Get billions of dollars from the federal government, get billions of dollars from the state, right? And there was a lot of things that are going on that are not appropriate or not right. So it's like people feel like you have to go along with these things. And the moment you speak out, that's it. You're cast aside and made to be treated as if whatever you're saying, whatever you're doing, you're the wrong one, right? You're the wrong one. But it's not true. You're actually the one pointing out the truth, pointing out those moments that are bad, right? And so why not let him speak up and say things the way he feels
About you,
they are?
the problem with Hassan Piker's Einstein story, honestly, I just skipped the whole fucking Einstein scan. I was like,
No,
I'm
that
not-
was awesome. That was so funny because Yair Rosenberg was like, I wrote my undergraduate
That I did
dissertation
see,
or
yeah.
thesis on this. And it's so funny because like there's an entire book that was, I think, published in like 2024, Einstein on Zionism in Israel, that is that compiles pretty much everything that Einstein has said on the issue. And I mean, this wasn't exactly a guy who was shy about revealing his opinions. I mean, he wrote on, you know, why he's a socialist, and he was pretty open about like seeing the warning signs of what Israel was turning into,
Absolutely.
what Zionism was turning into, and which was what I was addressing with John Favreau, which Yair for some reason thought would have been a great opening to just like kind of bludgeon his perspective into.
Well,
which
I
might
mean,
work
look,
on-
you write your undergrad thesis, nobody talks about it again for decades. Like any
Yeah.
chance to pull it back out.
Yeah, they should question his diploma if that's what he was writing his thesis on. If because it was ridiculous. Like he claimed that I was actually picking choice quotes to frame Einstein in a disingenuous way, when in fact he literally did do that. He was like, everything Einstein said about Zionism up from the 90s until like, you know, the wholesale slaughter that was that was happening in, like, I even brought up the exact atrocity that Einstein and Hannah Arendt and many others had criticized in Deir Yassin. And it's really interesting. He just avoided that part of the conversation entirely and was like, well, here's Einstein being super supportive of like giving Jews refuge anywhere else other than Europe.
So that's always been the classic take on Hassan Piker. They don't like him because he's called out the genocide in Palestine. He's made the issue front line and center, where Israel has become very unpopular, even as a mainstream topic. A lot of the topics that he was addressing, like ICE, abolishing ICE, he was in the front line of it all, right? And so it's a lot of back and forth and a lot of difficulties that people don't want to allow certain perspectives or certain point of views to be heard or to be part of civil discourse. And that's a sad thing, right? Because we need civil discourse in this country. right? We need civil discourse. We need people to be allowed to speak up and to stand up for um, uh, their freedom of speech. Words don't hurt nobody unless you act on those words, right? Um, you should be allowed to express yourself, even if those words you don't agree with. People should be able to be allowed to give their own opinion in circumstances and in life.
Europe, where pogroms are happening from the period of 1920s until 1940s.
Right.
So like very interesting. That's cool.
Well, Einstein famously was really like a one-dimensional thinker. He couldn't really think, beyond just a. So for him, it was like Zionism good or Zionism bad, and I think that's sort of where you and Yair got caught up. Was that? Didn't he also write at one point that like the Likud party specifically was sort of like veering towards Nazism or something?
Yes,
to that
he
effect?
said. Well, he said Menachem Begin is a fascist.
That's just a reality, right?
And which I mean he is correct.
Obviously.
But then also this was pre-Likud, so I think it was it was like all of the previous.
And so he
I
speaks
think
about
it was directly Irgun that he was.
the issues that they don't like anyone speaking about, right? He hits it right on the head and says what he feels or what he feels in his mind. He right away expresses it to his peers, and now he gets penalized for speaking up, right? Hassan Piker gets penalized for speaking up and saying things the way he wants to say things, which everyone's allowed to do, right? Um, everyone's allowed to do it. Or at least should be allowed to do it. Even though we have a history of repressing women, repressing minorities, repressing groups that have not been allowed to speak up because we feel, or the people that were in charge felt, that they would take away their power, right? That's why slaves were not allowed to read and write, or you weren't allowed to teach them to read and write because they were afraid that those with knowledge would be able to stand up for themselves and speak up for themselves, right? So that's one of the main reasons why they always want to control the narrative, because when they control the narrative and control the media, then they can control people's minds and ability to challenge authority, right? They don't want to be challenged. They want to be able to do things their way and be able to profit off of their thinking and want to be able to profit off of their ideas and not allow anyone else to benefit from their ideas, right? They want to be the sole winners of the sweepstakes of life, right? They want to be able to live a good life while other people live a poor and struggle to be alive, right? You know, and it's not right because we shouldn't be hoarding happiness for ourselves or for only the people that we get along with, right? We should never, never do that, right? We should never hoard uh, anything for the rich. It should be distributed to the people because it's the people's resources that are being spent on a lot of these programs and a lot of the ideas that they present, right? So that's the most important thing that I hope you all understand. Um, Hassan Piker is outspoken, but in the end of the day, he's a Twitch streamer. He just speaks on the mic, gets people to follow him. Um, Sometimes he tells people to do stuff, but he is no threat or anything bad for the country. Actually, he's bringing in young people to become politically engaged unless the establishment doesn't want young people to be politically involved. Then that's a different story, right? But we want to see young people being involved in politics. And if we could bring them in, especially young men and young women, to volunteer and help out, that has made things even better, right? So let's keep listening. Let's keep listening. Is that all they're going to give us? Is that all they're going to give us? They don't give us the full clip. Let me see.
Trying to tackle this this big behemoth, the underpinning ideology of Zionism, and I find that very interesting because, like, you see, I mean, he grew up in a kibbutzim, right? He's you know he was in the IDF. Like, I understand if you're a Holocaust scholar, if you're a genocide scholar, and if you've done such formative work, you know, addressing and completely destroying the clean Wehrmacht theory, right? You've spent your whole life analyzing the Holocaust and these genocides, and Israel has always been a refuge for you, a place that you learned is going to protect you. Like, I'm somewhat sympathetic to you know, having to work through the motions and like try to decouple Zionism from Judaism and even tackle Zionism and
Totally.
address it directly.
I'm with you on that 100%. And I think that, like, I've been saying recently that there's sort of like a new political faction that I'm seeing, which is, I think Ezra Klein sort of is a proxy for them in some way. Well, I don't know where he is exactly, but it is basically somebody who's never going to get to where you and me and our peers are in saying that, like, Zionism was going to be Zionism from the beginning. Like, they're never going to be able to give up on the idea that there could have been a peaceful Zionism. However, they may be coming to the conclusion that the project is now irredeemable. And that to me is like a sort of new-ish position. And I think that just to get straight into the sort of politics of it, like, I think that's going to be a really important group to sort of cultivate in terms of building, you know, political consensus. I also, like, you know, there's a tendency among leftists to, I don't even want to call it purity testing, because I'm like, more specifically, like, if you can't say that Zionism was this from the start, then, like, we don't want to hear it. Like, somebody, for example, who is willing to call it a genocide today, but, you know, they just have some other idea of what Israel could have been. Like, listen, I think those people are misguided and they're doing a lot of cognitive, you know, mental gymnastics too.
Oh yeah.
But I still think it's like, okay, as long as we are on the same page that, like, this is irredeemable and we need to fucking, like, do what we can to take it apart, then I think those people need to be welcomed in, basically.
100% agree. What's really funny about this is I just had a conversation with Peter Beinart. It hasn't been released yet, so this is a little bit of a leak.
Yeah, I got to get this out before Peter then.
And yeah, definitely. And a big chunk of that was about his disagreements with me. First in the USSR side of things, which is fine, whatever. And then on the last half, it was about Hamas, and what I found to be interesting was me saying, well, liberal Zionism is like saying you're a liberal Nazi because Zionism is Nazism. Like that was a big point of contention for him. And I think like I align with Peter in many ways, right? But that hang up for him was my utilization of the term Nazi. He was saying like, listen, these guys are, I asked him, I was like, do you think Trump is a Nazi? He's like, well, I wouldn't say that, but I think he's a fascist, all this stuff. And I was like, well, okay, if you're calling someone a fascist, like it's fine. You can call them a Nazi, right? Like that's what I was trying to say. And there was this like, from what I gathered from his perspective, there was almost this like exceptionalism of like the Nazis because of the Holocaust. And what I see is one of the questions he asked me is like, okay, like there are many liberal Zionists that you work with, right? You have worked with it. How does that work? Like you're working with Nazis. I was like, yeah, I live in America. Yeah, like people are not going to like what I have to say here. People to my left are not going to like what I have to say here. But like sometimes you got to work with people who will every now and then have these mental blocks and these blind spots on entire swaths of the population. And I'm very pragmatic. I understand that like I can try to communicate with these people. I can build coalitions with these people to move the conversation into a more productive place, knowing full well that there is a resentment there that hasn't been fully addressed. But as long as they're not getting in the way of progress, and it was Bernie Sanders that I use as an example. I was like, I really respect Bernie Sanders for what he's done as far as like this conversation in particular, Palestine, even if I completely disagree with his assessment like post October 7. I think regardless of the disagreements that we might have, is perfectly willing to not only endorse but work with people who are further to the left of him on this issue. Right. And I have respect for that. Like it's a mutual understanding. This is how you're supposed to collaborate with people and organize a broad movement. And it's one thing that I try to explain to my audience as well all the time.
Well, I think that's why you get punched from the left, right? Is because you are an electoralist on some level, at least. Like you believe in politics, basically. And I'm with you, frankly, because I mean, listen, like I'm going to say this without putting any moral valence on it, but and just sort of state it as a fact that like I feel like shortly after October 7th, or immediately after October 7th, among like the very sort of fervent anti-Zionist crowd, there were a lot of people who were saying basically like all support needs to go to the axis of resistance because this is the moment to topple Israel. And there were other people who were saying, well, don't forget Israel has nuclear weapons and they have Israel on their side. And ultimately there's going to need to be a political element to this, both in America and also potentially in Israel. And I mean, I got a lot of grief for that, a lot of grief, which is like, we've been trying to do politics for, this whole time and it hasn't worked and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, especially from my perspective as a reporter who's been on the ground, it's like, we are talking about real people who are getting murdered by these bombs. And like, we would like to stop that. Even, yes, is it incremental? Perhaps. But I think that like, it's just a little bit, I don't want to call it detached, but I think it's misguided to think that like, we're going to, end this problem without the help of politics in any way. Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. And I see it as not like an either or situation, but I see it as a collaborative effort. It has to be multifaceted. This battle is being waged on every front. So I think the counter and the defense towards it also needs to be waged on every single front as well. Obviously there's red lines, like, but ultimately, I think it's still very important to make sure that you elect people who are anti-Zionist, for example, even if it's just to move the conversation into a more productive space. But there's obviously additional benefits beyond that. Those guys go in, they build coalitions, they offer more courage to people that are in the margins, in positions of power. They're now, just as I am an entry point for my audience and many Americans and their shared resentments, to be communicated directly to elected representatives, members of Congress, which is very frustrating for the likes of Third Way and all these other groups that have been losing their minds, APAC, ADL, and the like. Those members, those elected representatives, are also, capable of speaking to their peers in a way that we don't have access to, in a way that I don't have access to, in a way that the average person certainly doesn't have access to, because, theoretical democracy aside, we don't really have
a real democracy.
We don't really have any sort of real representative politics.
Yeah, no, totally. Okay, I want to just real quick go back.
That's why representative politics is not about the individual. So they say everything he says is like toxic and bad, but not necessarily everything that he says is bad, right? Everything, he's just speaking his truth, or what he believes or perceives to be the truth, right? So if you see this interview, it's a good interview, down to earth. I don't see why the media sees Hassan Piker that dangerous.
I'm actually like sort of bewildered at the attention on you in the last 6 weeks. Listen, Hassan, like, I think you're great. You're extremely handsome, and I think you have great politics, and like you're very good on camera. But like, why? What did they want from you? What was this all about?
I think it's twofold. Okay. One, every conversation that's being had about me is unproductive, and therefore very productive for the interests of, the lobby around pharmaceuticals, private healthcare, Israel. Instead of having a serious conversation about like America's allegiance with Israel and how that has played a formative role in us going to war with Iran, and how spectacular of a quagmire that's been, countless amounts of assets lost in the process, American lives lost, obviously also, first and foremost, people that we've killed in these places directly, and people Israel is continuing to kill in places like Lebanon and even Gaza. A lot of Democrats don't want to have that conversation. So they would rather use someone that sticks out, someone who speaks for someone who's spoken for more than 21,000 hours on camera about contentious topics, from a position that many Americans are not familiar with, a left position, an anti-imperialist position, anti-capitalist position, in a vulgar manner. I'm a target-rich environment. So this is a disciplining opportunity for the previous gatekeepers of media as well. They've completely lost on this conversation. They can no longer make people think a certain way on this issue. And so they've given up on trying to discipline the electorate. And that still might come back with harm reduction narratives in the midterm. So, give it 6 months and we'll start hearing that as well, the disciplining of the electorate. But instead, they're disciplining me as a spokesperson for the electorate. And they're using some not so subtle reactionary lines of attack as well. The terror jacketing, this guy is Muslim, and
they do it to Zoran.
Hypocrisy fishing where no such hypocrisy exists. The classic canards that reactionaries have actually deployed against.
And they do that to Zoran all the time. They always find a way to try to throw him curveballs, get him to fail. And so they haven't caved in to that. Right? Zoran hasn't caved in, at least.
Even Democrats with regular frequency. Now establishment Democrats are using against their left flank, as they've been known to do so, even with Bernie Sanders in 2016. 2016 and 2020, and they will continue doing so. But this time, what's struck me as odd.
It's odd, right? It's just straight up odd. The way they do
Is
things.
that they are openly collaborating with the right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's bad, right? Democrats collaborating with the right wing, collaborating with Trump, trying to work together. That's real bad. They can't even hide it now. They just like straight up with it.
Every single thing that Neera Tanden, Center of American Progress, is saying on the timeline is identical to what Sean Hannity said yesterday, is identical to what Laura Ingraham said yesterday, is identical to what Fox 5 said yesterday. They did 8 stories on me yesterday. That's the reason why I'm bringing this up. 8 stories. So I was up
Insane.
for the last 8 hours of the daily broadcast of Fox News. I was brought up 8 times. I mean, that's unbelievable, right? Like that's unbelievable. But what makes it even crazier is the reality that it wasn't just Fox News. It was, third way.
CNN.
CNN, Dana Bash, Jake Tapper. They are also leaning into the exact same reactionary framing over and over again because ideologically they're aligned with the Republicans.
Right.
And so that's what it is. It's both a disciplining operation. It's both a
and they have the same
warning
donors.
sign for anyone else in the media sphere that's paying close attention to this, that if you think about speaking on these issues, you better think twice or we'll come after you and, we'll find skeletons in your closet or we'll create them if no.
Trump is getting people upset. They're really trying to dig deep into Hassan Piker and trying to find anything possible to say, hey, I gotcha. He did this in 2019. He did this in 2010. They just keep going back deeper and deeper. And they did the same thing to Zoran, digging deep, trying hard to find anything that will cause him to contradict himself or say anything that is not 100% popular to say, right? It's sad but true. But
no skeletons
let's finish
exist.
watching the
will make
internet.
your life a living hell.
Yeah, they will.
This is a warning to
They'll make
politicians.
your life. This is a warning that they'll cancel you and they'll come after you if you speak up and point out those things that are prevalent, right? It's sad, but they're doing it. It's sad, but that's what they do, right? That's what they do. I gotta check this out. I'm hearing a helicopter overhead. Right? So people reported it. Right now, there's a helicopter overhead. I don't know what happened. Right? can hear the helicopter overhead. Yeah, so that's a little distracting. But let me keep playing the Hassan Piker interview, right? We're not gonna play the whole thing. We'll play some of it, right? So we'll play some of it. So give me 1 second. Wow, it loads. Okay. While the interview loads. So this is a warning to everyone that you have to fall in line. If not, they'll cancel you. Right? So 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 sorry. Um, let's listen to it a little bit more, and just the first part of the interview, and we'll jump into covering some regular coverage, right? Some other coverage, right? And obviously, some of the agencies don't like you covering this stuff. right? So even online, they don't like this stuff being covered because they find it shocking, or they find it repulsive, or what? I appreciate you all, though. Thank you for joining me on all the channels: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Right? Thank you for joining me. All right, thank you for joining me. So Zoran is just being attacked from all angles, and 60 Minutes did an interview with Donald Trump, and the interview went sideways real fast. And so this is just a very, very important clip about it. Let me play the clip, right? Let me play the clip while the other one loads, where Donald Trump is being interviewed, and he was really upset, right, when he was asked this question about the manifesto, right? About the manifesto.
Read, Mr. President, he appears to reference a motive in it. He writes this quote, administration officials, they are targets. And he also wrote this, I'm no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people, horrible people. Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
Do you think he was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. Your friends on the other side of the plate are the ones that were involved with, let's say, Epstein or other things. But I said to myself, I'll do this interview and I read the manifesto. He's a sick person, but you should be ashamed of yourself reading that, because I'm not any of those things.
Mr. President, these are the gunman's words.
Excuse me. You shouldn't be reading that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace. But go ahead. Let's finish the interview.
The other thing that he wrote in
You're disgraceful.
the other thing in the manifesto that
He got really disturbed. He got really upset about it.
Last night in Washington,
Right. This is
a
what
gunman
happened.
stormed the security perimeter at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The president, the vice president, cabinet members, and more than 2,500 guests were gathered to celebrate freedom of the press. We spoke with President Trump this afternoon.
how worried were you that there were going to be injuries?
He was doing fine.
It started getting noisy. Tables getting flipped over, guys running in with guns, and they were screaming, "Get down!" I didn't get down. It was fucking awesome. I literally took every minute of it in, and it was a pretty crazy, unique experience.
So you were on the aisle. What exactly did you see?
We were sitting right in front of the table,
Okay.
right in front of where the president was.
Yes. And what exactly happened? So someone got tackled, or like what?
Nobody got tackled, but
Okay.
guys came in looking for shooters. And they came toward our table. I thought the shooter was over by us or something. But yeah.
So you didn't see the actual attack yourself. Okay.
Everyone interpreted it differently, right? Everyone took it differently. So let's go back to the Hassan Piker interview.
What's this been
Oh
like?
no, not at all. But I'm used to I've been dealing with this stuff on the
Do you
internet.
read? Do you read the articles and like?
Yeah, I do.
They were going hard on him. They're writing 8
I laugh
articles
at
a
them. It's
day.
awesome. I love the articles. I got 2 of them pulled.
The New York Post is attacking him on a daily basis. Fox News attacking him on a daily basis, making him look like the worst person in America.
Up in front of me right now. I got Democratic spokesman Hassan Piker supports all sorts of crime as a form of protest. That's from Town Hall. And then the other one is Hassan Piker is the enemy. That's from the National Review.
Yeah. No, I got that one written down. Did you see the one in Vox today by Eric Levitz?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
They're calling me a campus.
A campus. Yeah, he's like he's like basically Hassan Piker is actually evil, but not because he's an anti-Semite. It's because he's a campist and a Maoist and third world.
Yeah, that's really going to work, I think, on Americans. They all have a lot of opinions on Mao Zedong.
Yeah, no, okay, that's a good segue because like I wanted to ask like where. From my perspective, I mean, I'm in a bit of a media bubble, admittedly, but it seems like it's just completely fucking fallen flat, if not like completely backfired in the sense of, to whatever degree the Neander-Tannens and the third ways of the world are actually trying to, like you said, discipline the electorate and, make some of these positions, non grata in the party. Like do you think it has been effective in any way for them or where does this leave us?
I think it's ineffective, but it's ineffective in terms of like undermining me, I would say, partially because like these people don't understand. One, if I don't go on any mainstream outlets any longer from this point on, that does nothing for me, right? It doesn't actually do anything. It has no negative consequences on me because as someone who has gotten a lot of favorable coverage from mainstream media, and as someone who's gotten a decent amount of favorable coverage from independent outlets, going on podcasts and whatnot, I'm pretty open about it. Going on Theo Von's podcast one time is going to translate to infinitely larger real viewership than a million articles that might be written about me in the New York Times and all these other places. Because the people that are reading those articles don't know what Twitch is. They don't really look at YouTube like that. They don't become like consistent and reliable fans or members of my community. So I've seen that in my own personal experience. So that like if they were to successfully gatekeep me out of legacy media, I think that would be worse overall for all of the outlets that I do collaborate with regular frequency. And then the other side of it is if they were to successfully stop me from campaigning with politicians or something like that, I wouldn't stop promoting the politicians that I like, that I'm aligned with, because that's what I've been doing for many, many years. It would just be, I guess, who knows if this is harmful or not. We haven't really seen it. I mean, I have some successes on the board with Zoran Mamdani, who was also attacked on this issue a lot in the last month where they decided we have nothing against Zoran. So we're just going to say, you hang out with Hassan Piker and he is a terrorist. And it failed, right? And the Democrats, weirdly enough, are trying the exact same technique this time with Abdul El-Sayed and with all these other politicians that I'm, all these other people that are running in the Democratic primaries. But if I don't hang out with any politicians, like, okay, who cares? Like, they think that this gives me legitimacy. They think, they're boomers. They think that I need to be around, elected representatives. I need to get elected representatives elected. And therefore that somehow boosts my profile or something. And it's just like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. But even taking you out of the picture, I mean, it just if the sort of broader goal is to make people fear taking a left flank position, I don't think that has worked at all. It seems like I have not seen any politicians I mean, you have your Alyssa Slotkins who, are never going to move left anyway. These are centrists through and through. But in terms of a progressive, so to speak, I don't think they're watching this and they're like, oh man, we better be careful with the way we, talk, because I just feel like it looks hysterical.
Yeah. It's very funny. I mean, Bernie was asked about it and he was just like, yeah, I don't care. He's a good guy. He does great work. He was like, no, he does great work. Shut up.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that is the the correct response, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really dumb because I mean, I think Bernie kind of gets it better than anybody else because he's like had to experience this quite a bit. Like he sees what's going on and he's like, this is just a opening. It's a vector of attack against the movement of Bernie-crats that are, running all around the country. The Democrats do see that as a sincere issue because it means that they're losing their grip of power, their influence over the party machine.
Yeah, they're scared of
this is a real
anyone
problem for all of their corporate interests, their corporate investors, their donors, right? Because now it will force people to reckon with the reality that there is a more responsive politics out there. There is good governance.
Yeah, they don't want anyone that would listen to the people, speak up for the people, fight for the people. They find that reprehensible and bad, right? That people are willing to speak up for the people. So everyone hit the like button, hit the share button, comment, follow me on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, and Substack, and TikTok. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Whatever channel you're on, thank you for joining me. We can only be successful with your help. With your help, when you hit that subscribe button or you hit the follow button, it helps the algorithm. So thank you so much for listening. The interview is almost over with Hasan Piker, and then I think that's all I'm going to cover. Right? Not going to cover much, unfortunately. So, but I appreciate you all for joining me,
Reality that there is a more responsive politics out there. There is good governance out there, and people will look at that just like they did with Zoran and be like, why can't we have that? That seems pretty cool. Like this guy's fixing the potholes. I would like that. I want that exact same thing.
Well, okay, that reminds me actually. Like I want to get back to the Saeed thing in a second, the El Saeed rally, but I feel like something that's gotten lost in a lot of this, the Hasan discourse, which, as you know, I'm a huge fan of, is like at the end of the day, it seems to me that your politics is a class politics. I don't know if you call yourself a Marxist or a socialist or what you call yourself.
I do.
Right? Okay, so like, do you think that people are understanding that? Like, what they're trying to attack you, calling you a terrorist sympathizer, blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, if as you say, like, if you are the one who is helping candidates get in, who are then fixing potholes and putting grocery stores in food deserts and whatnot, people are just not going to give a shit about the other stuff. Like, do you think they're missing that?
I think they're in fear of that.
They're in fear of that.
I think it's not, for the most part, the people that are chirping, they can't have a real conversation about what I believe, what this movement is, because if they were to have a real conversation, they would look like the villains. And that's precisely the reason why they have to have every other conversation. It's never about what I'm saying, right? Even in the New York Times podcast or any number of different.
They don't care what he says.
It's
about shutting him down.
To yell about. It's rarely ever the actual issue that needs to be discussed. On the rare occasion, they do accidentally show the full context or show my actual position and what they have a gripe with, which I really enjoy. I love when they do that, right? Because
give me an example.
Like they will show, they'll say like, this person wants to do theft, right? With the New York Times one, they were like, Hasan is endorsing theft, and then they literally show like a video of me where the host is asking me, like, would you?
Yeah, they just clip it and make him look as bad as they can, right? Right, that's all they do, because they can't win the arguments, they can't win on the merits, so they know that the only way they could win is by attacking the person, right? A personal attack, which is not a valid argument, right? You don't attack the person personally because you don't agree with them. So good luck, Hassan. It seems like you have your hands cut out for you. All these people are out to get you. They don't want to see you rest. They want to make sure that you shut your mouth and move on, do other stuff, but don't talk about the things that they do, right? And we can't have that as a population. We need outspoken people to speak up for everyone, right? Yes or no?
You steal from a diner, your local diner. I was like, oh, absolutely not. If I saw someone doing that, dining and dashing, I would pay for their meal. So they add that in to the package, which I think probably makes the average person.
And just to be clear, though, like the point you and I think Gia Tolentino were both making is like, but there is such thing as like a victimless crime, right? If you are, taking something.
Well, I was also joking when I said like you could steal from the Louvre, right? The
Right.
Louvre, that we need to get back to like cool crimes, and people took
Okay.
that seriously.
Got
They
it.
were very
Yeah.
mad about that. They're like,
Yeah, that is upsetting to hear at a time
Yeah.
when there's been a heist so recently. I mean,
I know, that's why it's fun. But that was awesome. Like that was
Yeah.
chill. That was cool. Like I wish we didn't do such lame and gross crimes like
Right.
cryptocurrency shit. Anyway,
That's
that
true.
was my point.
okay, so but your point is that like somebody actually shows that full clip, and then their audience is like, well, this guy doesn't seem so bad actually, and so
Yeah.
instead they just have to sort of like
They're
cherry pick
just
and paint
promoting
a certain
you.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I want to just real quick talk about the. Are you familiar with a journalist named Olivia Reingold with the Free Press?
Make him look better than what he is, because some of his people might say, or Fox News say, hey, we really like the guy.
She's my favorite. My favorite reporter in the United States right now.
Yeah,
They say she embodies the spirit of Seymour Hersh.
That's I'm glad you said that, because I want to say like my bone to pick is as a journalist. I mean, like ideology, like we have major beef, but I'm a journalist. I went to grad school for journalism. So did she. She went to Columbia. I went to NYU.
Mhm. And you can really tell her Columbia background in her writing.
That is true.
Yeah.
But okay, so like I'm going to actually insert the clip in here so people will see it. But there's this clip that sort of went viral
Just
where
yeah.
she's like badgering Abdul with questions about Israel, blah, 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 like the sort of standard things of, do you believe the state has a right to exist? And you're standing right next to him, and I think it was
so you get
Abdul's
it.
comms person is like, that's enough.
Yeah.
You've asked enough. And then she's like, does Israel have a right to exist? And he's like, okay, you know what? I'll take
Yeah.
the question. It's
Absolutely,
okay.
yeah.
And he like very calmly flips it back on her. Is like, can you define what you mean
Communication is very important at all aspects of our lives. Right?
by Jewish state? And she starts like, hemming and hawing, and
Yeah, it
he
was awesome.
pauses to like give her a chance, and she just like can't do it.
Sorry, we're gonna have to move on to the next person. I'm sorry, Olivia. As a Jewish state. Olivia, we're going to have to
I'd love
move
to take the
on.
question. I'd love to take the question. Actually, what do you mean by Jewish state?
I feel like
If you can't define the question, I'm not going to answer your question.
We're gonna move on to the next person. Fox News.
The way that he turns the question back on her is what we in the Jewish faith call like, he's acting like a mensch. He's just like very sort of warm and friendly. Even though he's being badgered, he's like giving her, the benefit of the doubt. And but the way she then writes it up the next day. So this is an article on the Free Press and also on Twitter. She writes, Later that night, in a makeshift spin room assembled by the campaign, he rebuffed my question on whether he believes in Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. What do you mean by Jewish state? He retorted, narrowing his eyes.
They get upset, right, with the left and the way the left carries itself, because they want to put us in a corner, an ideological corner, and make us seem like we're the worst people. We're not. We're actually compassionate about the world and the people in the world, right? That's the most important thing. But thank you for watching. I'll be getting off. Thank you so much. My name is Celso Garcia on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Substack, X, and Instagram. Thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Stay safe. Stay out of trouble and keep going left. Left is good.